There we are, recording in progress. So welcome. Welcome to Embodiment Mondays. Welcome to Reflections on Belonging. All right, let's take a few deep breaths and fully bring ourselves into intention around belonging and communing with land, because that's what this exploration is going to cover. So connecting to the theme of belonging for yourself. And then this is usually a hot topic. It's something that most of us have something to work through. And even if we've worked on it, we may still find in the holiday season, when it's our birthday, when we're traveling, different circumstances can trigger the theme of belonging. I don't know, school reunions, the cooler, the water cooler at work. I don't know what would trigger it. Birthday parties, anniversaries, weddings, funerals. So belonging. Taking a moment to consider for yourself, what does that mean in your world? Belonging. And what has been your journey with belonging? For some people, it's a major theme in this incarnation. And for some people, it's not a major theme. But like I already said, most of us have some work around this, major theme or not. So what has been your journey, maybe as a child? As a teenager? As a young adult? Traveling, moving to different places on the planet, having your own family? So very basic question. How do I know if I feel like I belong or I don't? What happens inside of me? So consider your story, and I'm going to share a little bit about my story in case this helps bring things up for you in a good way. And if this starts to feel like too much, if it starts to feel like you're sinking, because as I said, for some people this is a major theme, then just take a few deep breaths, stand, shake or move or whatever you want to do to let the energy move. Like I said, this is about embodiment. So let it move through your body. It's not just a mental exercise. Even though you're remembering whatever you're bringing up or is coming up, your body will experience it as now, here and now. So I come from a mixed parent household. So my father he's now passed, Greek. My mother's Bolivian. So I always felt like I wasn't Bolivian enough or Greek enough. And I didn't belong to either. But I was born in the US, and I was definitely not American enough. So since a child, I have felt like I didn't belong to this or that or that. And that came up in school, that came up in the cool kids or not, in getting a boyfriend or not. It came up all the time. So that was the beginning of my sense of not belonging. Trace back for yourself as far as you can remember, or whatever comes up. You don't have to force it. Your sense of when did it start to be active for you, the sense of belonging or not, and what did it have to deal with? Was it about other humans? Was it about culture? Was it about your family home? Was it about a place? Yes. This isn't me. Or it is. So if you'd like to write something in the chat, or if you'd like to be heard, unmute and be heard. Again, the recording, I'm pinned, so it should not pick up your image. If you want to share, what I find very useful is just getting it out there, owning it. And if that doesn't feel right for you, it's totally fine. Yeah. And if you don't have much around belonging, that's a blessing. Enjoy it. You don't have to create a story around it.
I've always had this feeling of being an outcast, and knowing somehow that that's been part of me really excluding myself from the group of what I somehow consider normal, or and then making choices from this place of rebellion somehow to stay in the outcast and continue excluding myself.
Yeah. So that reminds me of my high school days. Thank you for bringing that in, that I felt like an outcast, and I would just have lunch on my own in my English teacher's class. Like I would just take my little tray with food there or whatever I brought from home, because I didn't feel like I belonged with the other people in my class, or whoever was having lunch. And I chose to exclude myself. I chose to isolate or separate. Yeah. And that's one way people deal with that. Yeah. Thank
you. Yeah, I didn't belong because I was a girl. And my family, even my mother was like a man, my brothers, and so I felt completely different. And then as I've got older, I mean, obviously the woman things worked all the way through my life, but I think for me, what's been really salient is seeing, I don't think I did outside myself, but I've learned my role is to be an outsider and to watch from that place. But also I was reflecting some traveling. And sometimes I can feel completely I belong in the land with groups of people. I feel complete love, and I've never met them before, you know, and it's really interesting, the evolution that happens. And yet I can go back to my family and watch myself and watch the dynamic, and it's different. Thank you.
So that's where we're going next. Thank you for giving us that gorgeous bridge. So there's a sense of belonging to people that some people have, and to a group of people, or to our childhood family, or definitely not, or our what is now our family, the family we've made, or the friends we've feels like family. But it's people, it's humans, belonging to another human, if it's a partner, or to a group of humans, or to friends, family. But it's about humans, belonging to other people, or with other people. And then there's so that's the who, and then there's the what, belonging to a sense of a purpose, or a higher cause, or a reason why I'm here, that others also have in common. Maybe for some people it's the environment, for some people it might be animals, it might be whatever, but it's the what that brings us together. Even through that what, I belong, because it's what whoever else joins in that what, we hold it as sacred, and we hold it together, or we hold it as part of the reason why we've incarnated, or why we're here. So that's what. So a sense of belonging through that common what. And there's a message: I could trace the not belonging to quite an early age. Yeah, I have always felt like an outsider and found it hard to make friends. Yeah, me too. Especially during the school times, and fit into the groups. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And it's a lot of people's story or experience. So I introduced the who and the what, and then there's the where. That maybe I feel that I belong to a where. It's a particular place, and maybe it's a smaller place, or maybe it's a bigger place. It's a particular village or town, or maybe it's much broader than that, but it's land, it's earth, a particular vibration of earth or land. So the where, the who, what, and where are ways that we can look at sense of belonging. And if it's religion, if it's culture, if it's other things, then usually they can fit in some combination, or one of those who, what, wheres. So one of the misunderstandings or detours that we've taken as humans is we've isolated the sense of belonging, or narrowed it in, focused it to the who, made it about other people. And if they reject me, or if at some point it doesn't work out with a who, then I don't belong. So the invitation is to explore. And there's another message. I cannot use, sorry. Okay, somebody can't use their microphone, so they're going to write. I have always had a feeling of not completely belonging to my family or to groups, and that has led me to hold myself and to fit in to mold myself and to fit in. I have always had friends, hobbies, many groups around me, but inside of me have not felt that I truly belong anywhere. Right. Yeah. So that's another way that's another coping mechanism, or to survive that sense of I don't belong. And I know that, for example, this, people say, and you can agree with it or not, that we're pack animals. So we need that sense of belonging. You can argue that this way or that way. It may be your truth, it may not be. But this sense of tribe, or this sense of pack. So I'll address that. But that may come through humans or not, other people or not. It might be the what, it might be the where. So yeah, this other ways of coping with belonging or not belonging. So I want to bring in now the where. Now this is usually not considered so much. So it's worth reflecting on and exploring, physically exploring. So here's a little brief something from my experience in case it supports you to connect in your case. When I was a teenager, I was really lost. I was what is referred to as acting out. I had dropped out of school. I was running away from home. I wasn't coming back to home, my mother's home, to sleep. I was on drugs. I was a mess, and I was a nightmare to my mother. Bless her for going through that. And she went to my high school counselor in the US. At that time, you had people that served as counselors that parents could go to and talk to, and also the kids could go to, and the teenagers, and talk to about what they want to do or be when they grow up, or what school they want to apply to, this kind of thing. And so my mother shared her frustration, and he said, she has an identity crisis. Even as I say it, I want to cry. Yeah, that runs very deep in me. And so he said to her, she has an identity crisis. You guys have just moved here from Greece. You're Bolivian, to my mother. And, she's lost here. He told her that I'm feeling like I don't belong without using those words. And he was right. Bless him, an angel he was, sent. And he said, because my mother was like, okay, we have to go through therapy, this and that. And he said, save your money, save your time. Take her to Bolivia. Let her meet her extended family. Because we had already been in Greece and came over from Greece. So I knew that part of the family. And my mother didn't have money at all. And so the plane tickets and all of that, but she did it. She did it. She paid for me, herself, and my brother to go to Bolivia. And she had in the back of her mind that she was going to leave me there in some nunnery. I don't know what that's really called, but some monastery for nuns that, could take care of me, get me off the streets, basically. And as soon as my feet touched the Andes, there was no more identity crisis. There was no sense of I don't belong, I'm not Latin enough, I'm not Greek enough, I'm not American enough, I'm not whatever enough. And it was through the where. And maybe you have a sense of where, and maybe you haven't, you don't, and that's okay. A sense of belonging, whether you believe about the pack thing and the tribe thing or not, but the sense of belonging gives the message of I'm safe, I'm held, I'm loved, I'm accepted. The sense of safety comes from your base. I don't know if this works or not. A sense from your base It's very primal. Very primal. I'm safe. I'm held. I'm protected. Out there in the wild, in the schoolyard, in the lunch cafeteria, out there in the wild, I'm safe. I'm held. I'm protected. And the sense of belonging also comes through the heart. I'm loved. I'm accepted as I am. So, what happens in a pack? The alpha comes, protects the pack. The mother chimpanzee or whatever comes and protects the little ones. So in the Andes, I felt loved and accepted by that land. It wasn't particular people. I didn't even speak Spanish. I felt held and protected by the land. And I understood what it meant to belong through the transmission of the land. It wasn't through people. It wasn't through the who. It wasn't through the what. It's not that we had anything in common, because we didn't, at least as far as I could see or understand. It was through the land. And maybe you have experienced that at a personal level, at the personality level. And maybe you've experienced that at a soul level or something greater. How do you know it's at a soul level? You can expand. You feel like there's a part of you that feels like it's come home, and it can fly and it can take deeper breaths. And it remembers itself, that it's here too. I don't know, that's the best explanation I can make of it. That sense of safety and being held, combining it with that sense of acceptance and love, unconditional. That's what the land, the where, can offer, just as much as humans can offer, or in my case, huskies. They've accepted me in their pack, and I swear to you, I've never gotten such a transmission from living beings of being loved and accepted. Even as I say it, again, I want to cry, because it's so deep, something that I have not had with other humans, but I have from these huskies. Yeah. It's animal to animal, the animal in me from the animal in them. Yeah. So, the where, to let it hold you, to let it love you, to let it protect you, to let it accept you. But I also knew that when I got to the Andes and when I've returned, yeah, for my soul, that's where I belong. But for my body and for my personality, not really. I mean, like, for a few days, maybe a week, but like, I'm not gonna set up house there. I've asked, I've tried. It doesn't work. But then I got to Finland, and I knew all parts of me could take a deep breath and relax and feel like I belong. But my mind, my personality said, well, like, no way, like, it's so freaking cold, like the food, like really, this is not home. But my body and my soul knew it. So maybe I'm just sharing this in case there's a part of you that feels it belongs somewhere, but another part of you that doesn't feel like it belongs there. And to not just, count that off, like write that off. And it's okay if a part of us feels like it belongs and is held and is accepted by a particular land, and a part of us doesn't. And it's worth exploring. And it's worth connecting to that. So the last thing I want to say about the where is vibration. So I spent several years, 11, being home free. Some people will call it homeless. I gave up where I was living. I had no keys. I just lived with a suitcase traveling around. It was by choice. I worked in different places and I was home free. And my question was, where do I belong? Where on this planet do I belong? That was my question. It haunted me because I didn't belong to anywhere and I belonged to everywhere. And it was painful and yet at the same time liberating. But I didn't have that one place. And I wanted that one place with which I had resonance, deep resonance. And yeah, citizen of the world and free and all of that, great, yes. And I still didn't belong somewhere. I couldn't call somewhere home. Everywhere was equally home. Yeah, sounds glamorous, but yeah. So resonance, vibration, your own matter with the matter of the earth, of the planet. So the guidance I was given, because I kept asking, is when you can vibrate your own matter, you can match it with that you'll feel it and you can match it with that on the planet. And I was like, what is that supposed to mean? That's like a koan. Am I supposed to make sense of that? And yeah, I was supposed to make sense of that. And I had no idea what it meant. And definitely I didn't know it would bring me to Finland. There we are. That was the answer I got with deep introspection. And it took me, I think it was 7 years after I got that guidance. I didn't give up because it was so important to me. The where, not the who, not the what, as a primary, not that it didn't matter, but the where. And for you, it might be different. So I just want to bring it up as belonging can take very many different faces and different explorations. So to be open to belonging to a who, to a what, to a where, and maybe they'll come together. And maybe they won't. And maybe there's one that's more haunting or more important in this life or more karmic for you. And maybe not. But this very horse with the blinders on way of looking at belonging, that it must mean we sit down over Christmas or whatever the occasion is and all of a sudden we feel good in our childhood family home or something. No. So when the land vibrates and you vibrate at a similar resonance, maybe that's somewhere you can stand for a while. Stand or roll around, however your body wants to connect to that body of earth, to that particular area. Are there any questions, any sharings? Please, I'd love to hear from you.
I'm happy to share. For me, the land has always been easy to belong. It's funny, I see through the window, the bit of the land behind you. And I had an interesting experience a couple of weeks ago where I randomly heard something on Spotify and I didn't recognize, because it wasn't really words, I didn't recognize any of the words, but I just knew that the voice of that woman must be Finnish. So then I had to go through an epic thing to find out because my mind wanted to know. And I was godsmacked because I instantly knew through the voice that this had a Nordic, this came from the bedrock that I come from. And I have lived 24 years away from Finland. Yet, I guess because I have lots of little, like really early memories where, yeah, I never actually have not belonged on the land. And I've had 4 bunnies and a guinea pig and 2 cats and a dog. So I also know that that kind of pack that loves you and always welcomes you. And for me, having had that belonging somewhere, which kind of then helped me to start belonging in my body, and then the aspect of really finding the people that I belong with, or finding how can I belong in my family when we maybe have walked a very different path, but still that's my bloodline. So somehow for me, having had a belonging somewhere is the one that kind of guided me through to navigate the belonging in other ways. And it's like, I just look through those, I don't know, I know where you are, and you're very close to where I spent the first 20 years of my life. But it's more than that. It's happened to me before where I just seen somebody on a Zoom and I'm thinking, oh, I think they're in a Nordic land somewhere. So like there's all these subtleties that are available. Thank you.
May I share? Because I was born in Zimbabwe and I left when I was 6 months old. And about 10 or 11 years ago, I just had to go back because I'd lost a piece of my soul. And when I landed on the land, not just the land, but a particular place, I just wept. I just lay down on my stomach and wept and wept. And I went back again a few years ago, and the same thing with Africa. And I'm in Portugal at the moment, and my whole thing is, where do I belong? Where is the land? Where can I feel, that expansive vibrance, And so it's a journey, because I want to make sure that wherever I live next is completely where I feel I belong with the land. And I've had to leave my cats behind. So I know that love, and I miss them terribly. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just wanted to say that whenever on a personality level, I don't nowadays feel I belong, I have this little Taki'h voice in my head that says that, and I feel it's sort of on the personality level, that belonging is a choice, that I can choose to belong. But of course, you need to have the experience, and you can, like you were sharing, and you all were sharing also, through the people or the place or the purpose. But still, like, if you don't have any experience, then it's difficult, of course, to find how to belong. But if you have any kind of experience, then somehow you can come back to it, even in circumstances or in a land that wouldn't be the one that would be vibrating as such. And also that I feel so strongly the land also, and feeling like somehow through the land you can feel all the land and get connected that way.
Thank you for bringing that in. And yeah, I remember when I said it. And I remember when I experienced it, because I was fed up with not belonging. And in that moment, I was in Greece, actually, when I decided no one's going to decide for me if I belong or not. It's my decision. And whatever might be happening externally, wherever I might be, or with a who, what, where, whatever might be happening, it's my decision. And I can decide at any point that I belong. Period. Full stop. And it's got to come from inside of me. And there can be 1,000 people telling me I belong, and I won't feel it. I won't believe it, because inside of me, I've decided that I don't belong. So yeah, it was where I spent my childhood, not the exact place where I spent my childhood, but Greece is where I spent my childhood. And how could I not belong there? But still, yeah, that's where it happened. This decision that no one is going to tell me. If no one else gets to decide, this is my decision. And it's my right. It's not a perk. It's not a luxury item. It's, how could I be on this earth? I belong simply because I exist. Period. Otherwise, I'm just fooling myself. I'm creating some story for myself, that isn't true. And I want to bring in the who, what, where together for a moment. That if there's a where that brings a bunch of people together by choice, consciously, then they have their roots, like trees have roots there. Now, it may be where you happen to be born. And maybe you don't choose to be there, or maybe you choose to go back. And that is a choice. And yeah, you happen to be born there because that's what soul chose for you, or as you, for this incarnation. But then you chose to go back from a more conscious place. And others who choose to be there, not by some circumstance or, because they have to, but through choice, then you all have your growing roots. That's the who. There are growing roots like trees in that where. So those who's might be part of your who, might be part of, that tribe, or that sense of pack, or that sense of community, or that sense of family. It may not be bloodline, but you've chosen a where that's the same vibration or similar. Again, the bedrock that speaks, that's you can see, you can feel, without anybody declaring themselves where they were born or where they were raised or whatever. So that brings us back to that very original, at least I believe so, sense of the word tribe. Is I belong to this land, or I belong with this land. And we all do. And yes, at that time, it might have been very true that I was born here by circumstance, and I'm not able to travel further than the next town, kind of thing, next tribe. But as far as we right now can feel into, where is that place of resonance that I can choose, or I end up in consciously, and others end up there consciously, choose to be there. And then, is that my family? Is that my tribe? Is that my community? Is that my who? Because we've chosen that where, because it's called us through its vibration, because that matter vibrates with this matter, and with those matters. And that's the who. And maybe it brings in through the what. Also, the who goes with the what, and the what lands in that where. That made some sense. That what, so for example, I'll take Nikkilä Temple as an example. That's where I'm at right now, and that's what called me in. I mean, that's the vibration that immersed me literally into the land, and I fused. Like, I've never experienced that anywhere else, anywhere, that I'm fused with this land. This land is fused with this land, and there are others that are being called in. Those are who's that we vibrate in this where, and maybe part of their vibration, just like in my case, it's with the what of the temple and what's happening here. So that's an example of a combination of who, what, where. And it doesn't have to be like that, but it could be like that. So these are the three aspects around belonging: who, what, where, and they can combine or not. That sense of belonging doesn't just come through blood or through humans. Definitely. And it is your birthright to belong simply because you exist, because you are matter, because your body is made of the earth's body, simply because you exist. You get to decide that at any point in time, anywhere you might be standing or rolling or sitting or whatever you're doing, and whoever may be around, a husky or a human or a cat or whatever. There was another comment. I so love Finland became your place of belonging. Yeah, I know, right? A bit of a surprise, I have to admit. Not a bit, quite a surprise. And it came through love. Now the open door was Timo. Okay, as I say this, also I want to cry. That was the door that opened, and God, Goddess, existence, universe, whatever you want to call it, knew that, it's not going to get me here in any other way. Basically, without any offense to the Finns, but my personality was like a full fuck no. But once love showed up, no denying it. And then I got a chance to feel the bedrock and that resonance, that peace, that depth, that alignment, I could go on and sing the praises of the land of Finland, which I would not have had any opportunity of even stepping on, for it not have been for a who, one particular who. And then here I am with a what. So whatever door is open to you, walk in, let it stay open and walk through. You'll have access to the rest of it eventually. Use the open door. Yeah. Oh, I remember. There was a comment written. Okay. Any other questions or any sharings around belonging before we move on to the next part of this embodiment transmission? And I just want to be clear, the embodiment part is very, very tangible. Like, oh, why are we talking about who, what, where on this embodiment transmission? It's through the body that you will know about that resonance, about the who, and about the what. It's through the body.
Okay. I would like to share something. So for me, this theme of belonging brings a lot of shame and a lot of being nervous. And when I'm in contact with people and they ask me where I'm from or where do I live, it makes me very insecure and it fucks so much with my brain, and then like my body stops feeling at all. So yeah, I'm noticing that there is also something that I should belong somewhere, and because I don't, I feel like I don't have a permission to exist. Yeah. And to be or to search for that door, it's like this shame and all of that is so much keeping me back from finding the door. Thank you.
I want to assure you that's not where it ends, because I totally can relate, and maybe there's others here who can relate or who are watching the replay. Not all, for me, it wasn't shame. For me, it was anger. I would get so angry when people would ask, where are you from? Or even on these Zoom calls, when people ask, where are you from? You know, to like get all these different places in the world or whatever that people are joining, or get angry. Where am I from? Well, do I have to choose one parent over the other? You know, one part of my heritage over the other, or choose where I was born, which isn't either Bolivia or Greece, where I was educated. Like, why do I have to choose one place? I get so frustrated. You can hear it. I'm allowing it to come through because I want to give it space. And I knew once I decided I belong, it was no longer a trigger. It was no longer a frustration. And it's not like this, it is something that I worked on. And so I know you, and I assure you, it doesn't end there. And whether it's shame or anger, or frustration, or many other things that may come up for people, and not having a sense of belonging, which was decades long for me. And you don't have a who. I didn't have the who was the hardest. And in fact, I feel shame around that. I'm going to say it publicly. I know there's another person on this call right now, Freya. I say your name out loud because you're going to do the second part anyway. So it's okay to say your name. I experienced the who for the first time very recently. They truly felt the who. That was the hardest for me. Not the where, not the what. And the who I experienced because of the where and the what came together with the who. So I assure you, stick with it long enough, exploring and keeping your heart open and your base open. How am I supported? How am I accepted? How am I held, or where? I assure you, I went through it for decades. Decades, and I didn't give up because I knew how important it was for me. That I need to find the where. Where do I belong? Where? It haunted me. And the who came around eventually. What, 20 years later, I think? 15. I started with the where. I got the guidance of how to find the where 2014. But I had already been asking the question since I was a child or a teenager. So there's drop the shame and know that most of us on this planet are on the same journey, whether we admit it or not. You're not alone. Whether it's the who, the what, or the where, or some combination. But a sense of belonging, most people don't have that. Truly, deeply. It's one of the core wounds that we experience as humans, because most of us don't want to be on this planet. Most of us can't relate to the others on this planet. It's a lonely, challenging journey, but it doesn't have to stay that way. And as soon as we recognize that everybody's on the same journey, we're not alone. And we can just admit and say what's real. And thank you for sharing your truth in a very vulnerable and penetrating, so deep way. Authentic. That's inspiring to the rest of us who are also there or have been there. Journey doesn't stop there.
Can I share also?
Please.
What came up for me was about being Eritrean, having both parents from Eritrea, and also being born and raised in Sweden. And I never learned the language, so like I understand it, but I can't speak fluently or make myself understood. And that's been such a shame, because like we have like all these relatives and family and friends and all of that, and everyone that meets me on the subway, and they can see that I'm Eritrean, but then they try to speak with me. And I can't, and they always kind of, go into this judging, like, why don't you know your language? And they're quite good at being a bit shameful about it, and like making you like, because I think they feel almost rejected by me not knowing my language. And they kind of, and if I am with my, and these things, also being with my, like some of the relatives, not relatives, no, I don't feel that much with them, but being with Eritrean and other people in gatherings, I feel awkward, because I feel like I can't communicate, and when they try to speak in Swedish or English or another way, they kind of lose their sense of this Eritrean connection. It gets lost, and I can sense that, and it just gets weird. And I just never felt like, I don't know, just this belonging that you can just sense and be with being together, it gets lost, because it feels like this is the way of bridging it is a lot through language. And and it just came recently that I have understood that I can just be in the beingness and sense the belonging. I don't have to know the language. And it's been such a, it's still landing. Like language is one way to connect, but it's not all of it. But it just also is true that it's very vulnerable, not knowing the language and just being. It's much more naked, and it's such a easy to cover up with just speaking and sensing in that way. And it's also a bit vulnerable for what I'm inviting to also, as I can only just watch, like I look into your eyes, or I can just, cuddle or sense you, and it brings also vulnerability in the other person. But this is something I just wanted to share, because it just felt like, oh, this is actually a bridge, and I just have to be, I'm willing to be vulnerable enough to connect in this way, and this is possible. And just felt, I don't know, just some sense of freedom arise in it. And then also having compassion for it being maybe vulnerable for them, and feeling the rejection that might come from that. It's like, oh, this is from this, and it's okay. It can also exist, and it doesn't mean that I don't belong, or that because it's like this essence, like that vibrates from some people, like Eritrean, like you can. I just, for me, it's just belonging is, as you're kind of also saying, just it's so much different way of belonging and connecting to that belonging, and being Eritrean, meeting people that's Eritrean, they vibrate in some special way. You can just, it's undeniable. It's nothing, something we're doing. It's just is, and it just feels nice. And also this other thing is, I've been so disconnected with my body a lot, to like a lot of trauma and so on. So, and then it's been really hard to feel belonging also. But it's so easy when I am in myself and I feel safe, then I feel like I belong almost everywhere. But then when I'm disconnected, I don't feel I belong anywhere. And it's such a shift. And and that's also very interesting, noticing deeper and more as I come into more body. And also this, I love this, what Freya said as something Taki'h said, and just came true for me yesterday even more. And it was about it's a choice. And yeah, I felt this was very true for me too, to hear that from yesterday, and now it gets reinforced. And yeah, it's a choice. I believe so too. Yeah, thank you. And and also having more connection with the body, animal body. I sense like you probably feel even more different subtleties and where you belong, like from your body, from your animal. Yeah, so thank you for all of these nuances, and thank you for letting me share.
So I'm gonna thank you all for your sharings. I'm gonna stop the recording for a moment, and then we're gonna do the second part. And this was a beautiful bridge. Thank you. Into the being more in your body and having through that having a sense of belonging. Yeah, just thank you for everything that's been shared and what's come up and come out, because this has been a theme for me. So it's just beautiful to share it with others. Yeah, in vulnerability, as you just said. So I've never done that publicly, so thank you for the opportunity. Stop this. There can be 2 parts.